The Book of Adrian, Chapter 6, The Ambush. Adrian awoke to the soft touch of a priest's hand on his shoulder. His body still ached, his ribs and leg throbbed, but something had changed. He felt stronger, more alive than he had in days. The healing touch of the Brotherhood had done something miraculous, but as his body grew stronger, his mind was clouded with doubt. Adrian had once been a man of deep faith. He had prayed, believed in God's mercy, trusted in the goodness of the world. But that faith had withered and died along with his family, lost to famine and the creeping death. How could a God exist in such a brutal world? And yet, here he was, surrounded by priests who healed with their hands, good men who had shown him a kindness he thought long dead. A thought crept into his mind, a thought he hadn't allowed himself to consider in years. Was the creeping death a punishment, like a second flood? If so, could it be lifted if enough good men still walked the earth? The possibility stirred something within him, a flicker of hope that refused to be extinguished. He dressed in his now clean clothes and followed the priest down the narrow corridors of the cathedral, through shadowed stairways and hidden alcoves. They came to a small, unmarked door tucked away from the rest of the cathedral. The priest knocked twice, and the door creaked open. Adrian stepped inside and was taken aback by what he saw. A group of men, priests, commoners, and warriors in chainmail were gathered around a large table, lit by flickering candles. In any other place, this many people together would mean a fight, a scramble for survival. But here, in this hidden room, there was peace. A feeling of brotherhood, of unity, overwhelmed Adrian, and for the first time in years, he felt at home. Tears welled up in his eyes as the sense of belonging filled his chest. He had been alone for so long, living in fear of others, never able to trust. But here, surrounded by these men, he felt safe. As he entered, all eyes turned toward him. A priest, whose robes were more worn and whose face carried the weight of leadership, stepped forward. His name was Father Josiah, and he commanded the respect of everyone in the room. "This is Adrian," Father Josiah said. "He is to be trusted, and he will join us in our task today." The room was thick with anticipation. Adrian could tell that the plans were already in motion, that they were giving out final assignments. He glanced to his side and saw Father Gregor and Simon, the mute boy who moved like a ghost. Simon gave him a small nod, and Adrian returned it. Father Josiah began to speak again, this time outlining the plan. "Bishop Karen has grown bold. He travels from his cathedral to the public square today to oversee another execution. This will be his last." He pointed to a map spread across the table. "We will strike as his entourage moves through this narrow street. It's perfect for an ambush. Our archers will be positioned on the rooftops, while our fighters will take him on the ground. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we leave no one alive." Father Gregor added, "Adrian, you'll be with Simon and me. Our job is to cut down the bishop's lieutenants if they break away from the main group. Stay close and follow Simon's lead." One of the priests handed Adrian a sword, its blade well maintained despite the wear of the world. It had been part of the Brotherhood's arsenal, and now it was his. The weight of it in his hands felt foreign but comforting, a symbol of trust and duty. He had to prove he was worthy of it. The city of Rennes lay in a sullen gloom as the sun struggled to break through the dark clouds overhead. Adrian crouched in the shadow of a crumbling building, his heart pounding in his chest. Beside him, Simon moved with the quiet grace of a predator, his dagger ready in his hand. Father Gregor knelt nearby, his face set in grim determination. The sound of hooves and heavy footsteps echoed off the narrow stone walls as the bishop's entourage approached. At the center of it all was Bishop Charon, seated atop a grand palanquin, his face smug with self-righteousness. Surrounding him were his heavily armored guards, their weapons at the ready. Adrian's breath caught in his throat as Father Josiah gave the signal. In an instant, chaos erupted. Arrows whistled down from the rooftops, striking the guards below. Screams filled the narrow street as the Brotherhood launched their surprise attack. Adrian watched as the guards fumbled, trying to raise their shields against the deadly rain of arrows. And then it was their turn. Father Gregor, Simon, and Adrian darted out from the shadows, slipping through the chaos to reach the bishop's lieutenants. Simon was a blur of motion, moving faster than Adrian had ever seen anyone move. He slipped behind one of the guards, his dagger finding its mark before the man even realized what was happening. Another fell before Simon could be seen, the speed of his strikes almost supernatural. Adrian fought beside them, gripping the sword that had been given to him that morning. His heart pounded as he swung it at one of the bishop's men. He wasn't as fast or as skilled as Simon, but he fought with desperation. He had to fight to stay alive, for himself, for the Brotherhood. But something was wrong. More guards appeared, far more than the Brotherhood had anticipated. The bishop's forces were better prepared, and the element of surprise quickly faded. The ambush turned into a slaughter. The Brotherhood's warriors were overwhelmed, their numbers too few to withstand the onslaught. The archers on the rooftops were picked off one by one, and the warriors on the ground were cut down. Adrian's pulse quickened as he realized they were losing. They had failed. "We have to go," Father Gregor shouted, his voice barely audible over the clash of steel and cries of pain. Adrian, Simon, and Gregor fought their way through the narrow streets, ducking into alleyways as they fled. The bishop's forces swarmed the area, and it became clear there was no chance of turning back. The Brotherhood had been decimated. Hours passed before the three of them found refuge in a two-story house on the outskirts of Rennes. The building, like the rest of the city, was crumbling, but it offered them a moment of safety. Adrian collapsed against the wall, his ribs aching with every breath. His body was exhausted, but his mind raced with the horror of what had just unfolded. Simon, ever silent, stood watch by the window, peering through the cracked shutters for any sign of pursuit. Father Gregor sat on the floor, his head in his hands, the weight of their failure hanging heavy in the air. "We can't go back," Gregor finally said, his voice hoarse with defeat. "The Brotherhood, they're gone. We can't do anything more about the bishop." Adrian stared at the floor, the loss sinking in. The Brotherhood had given him hope, a cause to believe in, and now it was shattered. Rennes was no longer a place they could stay. "We have to leave the city," Gregor continued. "There's nothing left for us here.